Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing part 1 of Marvel's Phase 3. In this video we're going to be looking at everything from Civil War through Thor Ragnarok. Just a quick little apology. There are some audio disturbances throughout the video, just some desk bumps here and there. I tried to edit out as much as I could, but some of them are still stuck in there. Just bear with us. With that out of the way, we'll just go ahead and get right into the video. Not too much of a big long introduction today. Hope you guys enjoy. First up in Phase 3 is Civil War. Corey's probably going to be mad where I rank this. Well, where do you have it, bud?
I bet you assume I have it in the S, but...
Oh, I did?
No. As much as I love this movie, I actually had it in the A.
Oh, let's go. Me too, bud.
Nice! It's definitely an A. There's some issues I had with it. Let's be honest. I was Team Cap all the way on this one. If I was in this situation, I probably would have aligned with Iron Man, but since I'm in love with Captain America, it's just... that's where I line up with it. I think my biggest gripe with this movie, Zemo was a much wasted character, and he felt like he was just kind of thrown in there for a plot device. And I didn't really need him in there whatsoever. I don't know how you felt about it, but I definitely felt that he was just kind of wasted.
That wasn't any of my gripes with it at all, actually. Because, like you said, he is a plot device. He's basically there just to set up the conflict between the heroes. Even though it was already kind of brewing, he kind of just tipped it over the edge. So props to him there for a plan that in reality there would be so many variables that would have to go in your favor for that specific outcome. Like without you directly impacting too much of it. But then again, he's still a villain. You know, he's not one of those villains in the MCU that gets killed off in the movie. You know what I mean? He's still in jail, and then he's going to be the main antagonist in the Falcon and Winter Soldier series. Mm-hmm. That's coming out on Disney Plus. So you're going to get a little bit more redemption in terms of how they kind of treated him in this movie. To have them fighting Zemo as a full-on villain while also still trying to fight with themselves, that would have been too much going on. I think you just have to kind of keep it on one track for the most part. My gripe with it is more that it's too much of an Avengers movie. It's like an Avengers movie, but they just put Captain America in front of it.
I see this as Avengers Civil War. That's what it should have been.
It's absolutely Avengers Civil War. I really thought all the super soldiers were going to get busted out, and that would have been a cool-ass fight.
Because they teased that. They teased that going forward with it.
Yeah.
And then nothing comes of it. And it's just ultimately, instead of them coming out, I'm just going to kill them all. They're all just dead in there.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
But then again, that wasn't the main focus of the movie. The main focus of the movie was the Civil War.
One of the best things about this movie is that I said, with your superhero films, and it's not like it's necessary, but for me, I enjoy it. But I think you really need to have memorable fight scenes. And this movie is just littered with memorable fight scenes.
The entirety of the airport scene is amazing.
The airport scene, Iron Man and Cap at the end. You had the scene with Bucky, Cap, and Black Panther all in that chase in the street.
That was all practical effects, actually. They used those called a magic carpet that they put behind the cars that are actually going 40 mile an hour. And these stunt guys are running on these carpets to make it look like they're actually running that fast. So I appreciate when practical effects are used over CGI. That chase scene was really cool. Spider-Man gets introduced in this movie in the MCU. I was almost scared because they revealed it at the end of that trailer. And I was like, oh my god, he's not going to be in it very much. Like, they just showed us all the footage of him. I was like 10% scared that they weren't going to use him enough. And then the other 90% was like, he's going to put on a clinic. What does he do? He steals Cap's shield as his introduction, which you saw in the trailer. And then, he kind of is like his awkward Peter Parker self, like, hey everyone, Cap, big fan, the whole thing. And I can already tell I like him. Tom Holland is just the perfect Peter Parker.
He's so great.
He's the perfect Peter Parker, and he was just all twitchy and weird and nerdy, but at the same time, you could believe that he's also a superhero, and then he keeps his personality that he is when he's Peter as a superhero. But anyway, he puts on a clinic, he fights Falcon and Winter Soldier at the same time. He catches Winter Soldier's metal arm, with one hand. And I was like, okay, they're already starting this out right by showing how strong he is. And they never showed that well enough in the other Spider-Man movies that had come out before it. When he caught Bucky's arm with one hand and was like, you have a metal arm? He was just being joking with him. And I was like, this is what's been missing from every other Spider-Man fight for years. It's just so cool when you make a new character look so strong like that right off the bat. I like how Iron Man figured out Cap was telling the truth. And still went there to go help him out, even though they just had a big fight. They are good friends, and they are good teammates in that whole thing. And he's, cool with, working with Bucky and the whole thing. And it's only when he gets revealed that, Bucky assassinated his parents, he just loses it.
He's got the most interesting character arc in this whole fucking universe. He's fantastic. Black Panther, this movie, this is my favorite version of Black Panther in Civil War. My thing is, yeah, he has his like moments where he's wanting to kill, and rightfully so. You know, he thinks that, you know, Bucky killed his father and everything like that. But I'm talking about like the fighting technique of Black Panther. This is my absolute favorite because for some reason, I don't know what it is. Maybe it was different choreography or whatever it was. But Black Panther in this movie seemed like he was a 10-time better fighter than he was in his own solo movie. God, he just, the way he flipped and kicked and everything like that. This Black Panther seemed like he could kick Black Panther from the solo movie's ass.
I could see that. I think that's really more so because of his fighting style hadn't been seen before, and so when he's facing the other characters that we have seen fight before, it makes him look like he knows a bunch of different moves and stuff, which he does, but it makes him look like that much more badass. And then when you get into his movie, when there's more people who grew up learning how to fight in the same sort of style and everything, I think it just makes his style look more just normal looking, like average, because it's just par for the course in Wakanda.
It seemed less CGI. That's what I think. I think that's the main takeaway.
I could get that.
I think it's more. I think it's more.
Yeah, because Black Panther had a ton of CGI.
Fuck ton.
Captain America, perfectly good movie. Too much of an Avengers level movie to be just labeled as Captain America. So I put it at A. Doctor Strange is up next.
Oh yeah, I need to hear where you put this one because I'm curious.
I have this at A tier as well.
You had an A tier? I put it at B, so we're pretty close.
Okay. I'm going to put it at B for now, and we'll see if I can talk you up to A. It's kind of the same things that I've said about, like, other origin stories, is why I knocked it down to A. Okay, there's wizards in the MCU, that's cool. When I heard that the movie was coming out, and I was like, I just wonder how they're going to do it. And then when I saw it was Benedict Cumberbatch that got cast, I was like, you know, I don't know if he'll do a good job. And then they showed him with like the goatee and like the hair done and everything, and in the actual like suit, and I was like, okay, he's Doctor Strange. That was just perfect casting. And then when I saw the movie, you know, it was visually stunning. It just is. It has origin story problems where it's like it's a little boring at times. My wife goes to see a lot of these Marvel movies with me, and a lot of times when it's an origin story like that one, it's a little more boring for her. If you're not like an avid fan of the characters and don't know who they are ahead of time, then you're not as excited to see the character. You're more excited to see the action of the movie. So in an origin story, it's really boring. There's a lot of in-between parts while you're setting him up and establishing him as a character. I can totally relate to people if, you know, you're watching a movie like that and it's kind of boring and dragging on and there's not much action until the end. Yeah, so perfect casting. Wong is another hilarious character. I like Tilda Swinton in it.
I don't dig deep into the art films as much as everybody else does. I like the majority of them, but there's some that I don't. And Tilda Swinton comes from that. And when I heard she was cast as the Ancient One, I was like, you know what? I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work. I'm just like, I don't think I'm on board with it. But when I saw her in this, and then even in Endgame, where she shows up again, I was like, oh my God, I love her so much.
She's extremely likable.
This one. Yeah, she's so good, and she does such a great job.
One of the most powerful people in the MCU. I mean, Doctor Strange is the Sorcerer Supreme now, but she was, and she's the Ancient One. That's just cool that you have. So you have Scarlet Witch, and then you have Black Widow, and then like you have these strong female characters already, and then you introduce her, and people just don't realize because she wasn't utilized very much. And the fights were cool because they were different. Again, like whenever I see a new character with new abilities, and they just work a fighting style around that, and the way the spells looked and everything, I thought it was really cool.
My main issue with it in terms of this movie, yeah, you said the pacing. My thing was it rushes the story a little bit in his training. To the point where I'm like, oh, and all of a sudden he's basically Sorcerer Supreme, and I'm like, what the? I mean, I would have been fine spending a little bit more time, with him going through the stuff, and I guess maybe it would have dragged, unless you did it properly, it would have dragged.
He's like the best surgeon on this planet. He's got a genius level intellect in that regard. Just his ability to memorize stuff. That's where his training was expedited because he learned the basic stuff so fast, and that's when he started stealing the more advanced stuff from the library, even though he wasn't supposed to. He was just reading it and memorizing it and getting it like so quick just because of that. Doctor Strange, I would say, is probably more of a genius in the MCU than he is in the comics, probably. He is super arrogant, and he's a prick to literally everybody he meets.
Everybody. We have to talk about the villain, because before we get off this topic, because we like we said before, movie's only as good as its villain. This is another one. If I had to rank them, I've already given my two worst villains. I would put him as one of my least favorite villains in this movie. Caecilius.
Oh, Caecilius. I thought you were talking about Dormammu, and I was like, oh no, they literally just couldn't do everything they wanted to do with him. They have to save that for a much bigger movie.
We'll get him again. I believe we'll get him again. But Caecilius, played by, well, first off, Mads Mikkelsen, the actor that played him, he's fantastic. If people haven't seen Hannibal, he's in Hannibal. He's fantastic in it. Definitely check it out if you can. Yeah. But he's just such a good actor. And
he was in Clash of the Titans, wasn't
he? I know he's in Casino Royale.
The remake.
He played the villain in Casino Royale who was whacking James Bond in the balls.
He plays a good asshole.
He does. He's so good, and he's such a good actor. And when I got Caecilius, when I first heard he's playing Caecilius, I was like, oh man, this guy's about to whoop he's gonna whoop Doctor Strange's ass. And then what I got in here was just like, oh, that's it. Oh, okay then. You're doing cool tricks and stuff. You're doing some cool magic tricks, awesome. But honestly, I felt like his henchmen were more of a threat than he was.
And then Baron Mordo, who is another setup as well. I think this movie is it did a lot of setup for future storylines that are going to be much cooler. And that's kind of sometimes the sacrifice you have to make with origin stories a little bit. We'll move on because we're already doing it again, Corey. We get too excited about these movies, and then even if we're ranking them bad, we still talk about it forever just because there's good things to say about all of them.
There's too much.
It's too fun to talk about. So I had it at A, you had it at B, correct?
Yeah, I'm happy with either spot, honestly.
I'm going to leave it at B for now. Maybe we can revisit it later. So we're going to move on to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
So, as much as I do love this movie, I have it at B tier.
Oh, same. Good call.
It is good. Don't get me wrong, it's great. But it definitely feels like it's a movie that could be plucked out of the MCU and it would not matter.
Yeah, there were no major consequences.
Here's my issue, okay? And this is a tiny little issue, but this is an issue regardless. So whenever they battle Ego, and they go through this entire thing, and Ego's like, yeah, I just made all my plants on all the planets. They're going to start sprouting and making a big glob all over the planet. Ha 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 ha. And when they do that, you're telling me that this never comes up again in the MCU? When that fucking Dairy Queen in one town all of a sudden just gets this alien glob just growing and potentially could kill the world, that never comes up. Next movie down the line, hey, good thing that thing stopped, because that could have killed us all. Ha 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 ha, right?
So,
but it never comes up.
It never got big enough to be on the radar of the Avengers, probably. S.H.I.E.L.D. probably came in and did a quarantine and cleaned it all up and all that kind of stuff. Something just happened off screen that explains it away.
Question for you: which one do you love more? And not on an intellectual level, but on a personal level.
The first one.
First one. Yeah.
By all means, the first one is in the top 5 best movies ever of the MCU.
I know, but my issue is I feel the same way, but at the same time I love the villain in this one. Ego is so great.
He just feels kind of forced into the plot. What does he even need to be there for? I mean, Kurt Russell is amazing in everything he's in, and it's no different for Ego. He played that. I liked the character. He was awesome. The whole reason that they even ran into Ego in the first place is because Rocket stole those batteries from what's their faces. And they just crash land. And also, you're going to tell me Drax survived hitting all those fucking trees when they crashed? Do you remember that part?
Yeah. So
he was bouncing off of them back and forth like a pinball machine.
I did think about that, because it's at the same time, I know Drax is essentially he's kind of like Hulk, a miniature.
He has enhanced durability and all that kind of stuff, I'm sure.
They never show it in the movies.
He doesn't get one cut on him at all? No, because it would screw up the makeup. At least show him limping or something. No, all I really know that is he just looks super buff, so he's about as strong as as Dave Bautista would be. That's all I get from him. And he has boot knives, and that's about it. But yeah, so that's the only reason they even ran into Ego in the first place, is because they got shot down by some other people. And then you have Taserface and the Ravagers kind of in there too. Taserface was fucking hilarious. All the MCU movies do humor really well, but the Guardians do it. They're one of the better ones at it.
I agree.
Especially,
and it's all down to James Gunn. James Gunn
exactly.
is fantastic.
And then you do, if you think too, Ronan was super serious as a villain, but he was one-dimensional. I'd rather have a villain where there's a lot of like comedic relief with them as well. If they're also kind of powerful and menacing, than just have a one-dimensional mean, just to be mean villain. So
Right.
Ego, super powerful. He was funny the whole time, and then all of a sudden, when he unleashes his full power, it's like, okay, he's pretty strong.
It's not necessarily a battle of who's gonna outstrength who.
Yeah.
It's more or less a battle of, yeah, this is a family battle. Can I do this to this guy that I've been looking for my entire life?
Yeah, you know what's kind of crazy about that is he kind of has the same mindset that I would when it comes to like family. There's a lot of people out there that the belief is, you know, your family is your family. It's ride or die with your family. Like you do anything for them, that sort of thing. I'm more of a person like, if you're not here to make my life better, then fuck you. Like I don't need you. He has those daddy issues. Then as soon as he hears Ego say, "It's a shame I had to put that tumor in her head," he just blasts him. He's just like, like just immediately, and I'm like, that's the kind of attitude that people should have. People are too trusting and nice and loving. So I sympathize with him, but I also just agree with that's the natural reaction that you would have for something like that.
You should,
instead of having him be like, "What? Like, how could you do that?" Like, he just immediately just started shooting him. And I was like, yeah, because like they established in the first one that his connection with his mom was the most driving thing behind him.
For everything.
Especially since he felt so guilty about it because he didn't say goodbye to her. And then he finds out that his dad, who abandoned them, also was the reason that she died, and he didn't get to say goodbye to her. Like, that just adds a whole nother level.
When you hear it for the first time, you're like, wait.
Oh, yeah, it took me off guard.
But it's also shocking seeing Star-Lord's reaction because, yeah, like you said, we're not used to seeing like movie characters do that because we got to give them the whole, oh, but why? Please don't tell me that's true. But he just goes to town on his dad that he's having essentially a pretty good time with, and almost, I mean, you could argue almost throws away the Guardians for his dad. Like it's that kind of relationship. It's already getting pretty real. And even the act that he just throws it away because he's like, no, fuck you, dude.
Yeah,
that's even shocking. Where you start shooting at him.
Yeah,
and I was pretty pleased with that.
And then is it Michael Rooker? Is that his name that plays Yondu? Okay, so he's also an underrated actor, I feel like. But yeah, Yondu, he's hilarious in this movie as well. He gets the Mary Poppins line hilarious. When it happened, that's kind of I guess it keeps going back to like the humor is what works in this movie, but the story is just kind of like bleh. Like the story is just a throwaway story.
It is. I mean, you can take it out and just watch it solo and not see anything else.
Exactly.
Yondu was fantastic, and I think this absolutely, if I had to give it a character's movie, this was absolutely Rocket's movie in my mind. Rocket grew up in this movie.
Yeah, it's a good character development story for him because he's the one that got him into that mess to begin with.
Right.
So, and then people would be mad, I think, if we didn't bring up Baby Groot. Baby Groot is is hilarious and adorable.
Favorite version of Groot, probably. I think everybody's favorite.
You know what? I'm gonna disagree, man.
I like teen. I like teen Groot.
I love adult Groot, man. I cannot wait until we get the next movie where he just is grown up all the way again. So Infinity War and Endgame Groot, awesome. I love teenage Groot. But I just want the adult version back so bad because you can only have so much humor before you start to kind of yearn for that more epic, badass fight. You know, Baby Groot literally could not fight at all in this movie, and then when you get to Infinity War, like teenage Groot does some really cool shit. And but I just want to see big, menacing, like still like a gentle giant, like super nice. But I want to see Big Groot again, man. I hope you guys are enjoying this on your long drive or commute to work because it's not going to be a quick between classes sort of thing.
No. So, and to future me listening to this, hello, and I hope your opinion hasn't changed of yourself. I don't know what that means, but there you go.
Well, let's move on then to Spider-Man Homecoming. What a homecoming it was. Where do you have this? I'm a little torn on where I actually want to put this.
I feel like I might shock you on this one, but I don't know. Maybe. I have Homecoming in S. I just loved everything about it. It gave me everything Spider-Man that I wanted. It has one of my absolute favorite moments in all the Marvel movies. It's the scene where he is under that crumpled building and he finally comes to terms with who he is, that he is Spider-Man, Peter Parker and Spider-Man are one. He's no longer just one or the other. It is all one character. And there's so many moments in this where I was so amazed with everything in this movie, and I was so impressed with everything they did. And honestly, not my favorite Spider-Man movie, but it might be tied for first with Spider-Man 2, just because I loved it that much.
Yeah, I for whatever reason I had this written down as A tier, and I can't for the life of me remember it. There was probably just one small gripe I had with
There's
it,
gotta be something in there, yeah.
but I'm gonna keep it in S tier with you because just looking at what I have written down, I didn't write down anything bad about it. This iteration of Spider-Man as a whole, I feel like there's an issue with a little bit. It's more so in the second movie than it is in this movie. For the second time within 20 years, you get Spider-Man rebooted, and then there's been 5 Spider-Man movies before this. And so I'm like, and he got introduced in Civil War, so I already know I like the character, but I was concerned, like, okay, how's the actual movie gonna go? And I know that since technically Iron Man was the one that kind of brought him on board with all the Avengers stuff and gave him the suit and all that kind of stuff, I guess that maybe would be my gripe with it, is that Iron Man is kind of like the central kind of figure in this, almost.
Point of him.
Almost like Spider-Man is like it's his story, but like everything kind of goes through Tony. Yeah. But what I like about Peter Parker as the character is that he is insanely smart. He creates his own web fluid in chemistry class. He's very intelligent and resourceful. The Sam Raimi trilogy, the first 2 movies, I would argue, are, aside from Homecoming, the 2 best Spider-Man movies out there. The second one's the best. Nothing else tops it yet. This movie paid homage to a lot of the other Spider-Man movies. I feel like it paid homage to more of the Sam Raimi trilogy. Just the parallels between like Michael Keaton and Willem Dafoe as the main villains. Like their demeanor when Peter goes to pick up the girl for the dance. Is this one of those situations where he found out who Spider-Man was and he just went to the house to take the girl hostage? And then you realize, no, that's his daughter, and that's even like another level. That was such a good twist. But that's just like the same as like when Norman Osborn, is the dad of your best friend. He's at your house for Thanksgiving after you just fought Spider-Man a little bit earlier. And there's that whole scene with him on the ceiling and the blood dripping and all that kind of stuff. The whole scene of when he's driving them to the dance and he slowly figures it out is genius. I appreciate subtle physical and facial expression, like the acting that goes into that. You can literally see the wheels turning in his head, like as he's figuring out that he's Spider-Man, and like I appreciate that. When he chases him after the dance, he gets to the building and Vulture has his suit fly through and break all the pillars and everything. That's just Sam Raimi Green Goblin, him flying the glider and trying to kill him, and then when he flips over it, that's just a cool Easter egg to that, I feel like. The Vulture suit looked really cool. The reason for why he's doing what he's doing was a good setup and a way to tie it into all the rest of the MCU. This movie does the best job of showing an actual high school age Peter Parker trying to be Spider-Man and be in the Avengers, all while being in high school. Like that's one thing that the other movies did not do at all. This movie, I think, it's a good introduction to the character to get his own story for the first time. Best iteration of Peter Parker and Spider-Man in the same movie. At the end, when they're on the beach, he's trying to save Adrian's life. Like, he's trying to fly away with that cargo, and it's gonna explode, and he's like, I'm trying to save you, like, please stop. And he just can't do it. And you can kind of see the anguish and hurt on his face when he realizes, like, I can't, like, I'm trying to help you, even though you've been kicking my ass this whole time up and down this beach, like, getting stomped to death. Like, I rewatched it the other day, and that was pretty brutal. Pretty brutal fight there on the beach at the end.
So fantastic. Definitely deserving of S tier.
You could say it's amazing. Next one is Thor Ragnarok.
Okay. I'm interested to hear what you think.
I have it at S tier.
Ooh, an S tier, huh? Okay, I put mine at A tier.
The reason I have it at S tier is more almost like from a aesthetic standpoint.
Yes.
It looks different. It's different from any other movie in the MCU in the way that it's presented and looks. So I give it props on that alone because they kind of took a chance with it, and Taika Waititi made it work, man. If someone had said, before I saw the movie, had given me a full-on synopsis and told me how it looks and how it plays out, and like the soundtrack and how everything looks and everything, it's like it's got like an 80s like retro vibe to it, but it's in space, and I'm like, I would have said, oh, that doesn't sound like Thor, that's not gonna work. But it absolutely works. And Taika Waititi's got such a unique sense of humor too. You know, he plays Korg, which is
Oh my god.
a rock monster in space, but who has a Kiwi accent, which
Yeah.
is bizarre when you think about it. But as long as you don't think too hard about it, it's hilarious. And honestly, you don't have to think too hard about it. I think it just works for some reason. I don't question it.
And he makes a rock paper scissors joke within the first moments of meeting him, so you know he's great.
Exactly. Like he's just like he's like making dad jokes. Like he's just like the nicest person. And you get is it Kate Blanchett?
Yeah, who plays Hela.
As Hela. I thought she was smoking, dude. I don't know how old she is. She looks good for her age.
It's just that outfit.
It could be the outfit. I think she looks fantastic. I was intimidated. She could throw giant swords at you.
Kill the Warriors 3.
Oh yeah.
Kill the Warriors 3 immediately.
Yeah.
I just like, what?
Well, as soon as I saw in the trailer that she destroyed Mjolnir, I was like, oh shit. Like they set her up as being insanely powerful.
I think the movie was great. I think my thing is, I love the movie, and people will disagree with me on this idea, but I'm gonna be honest. The one thing that I take away from this film that I could have done less with is I would have personally went lighter on the humor. As much as I did like the humor, at some points, I will be honest, at some points this movie felt like it was overblown with you, where it almost took a little bit of serious moments coming out, and then it took it where it's like, hey, something serious happened. Just kidding, it's another joke. And I'm like, okay, enough of the goddamn jokes. What? Do something serious. And I felt like the ending was I was happy with where it ended and where it was going, but the majority of like the second act conflicts that would happen, I was just like, yeah, a little. I think that's why I threw it at A, because I was just like, the humor got to me a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes with Hulk, where Hulk just felt like a bumbling baby sometimes. And
yeah.
Even though I like that, because I've seen him in a lot of like the cartoon, like the animated shit with him, and he's got kind of that same personality. It doesn't bother me as much, but I think I see it more because the film was riddled with so much humor.
I do kind of get what you're saying. It's pretty much nonstop comic relief throughout the whole thing,
right.
Even when there's like tense moments. I will say that when he does get full control of his powers there at the end, that whole scene they take pretty seriously for the most part. When they're playing like the immigrant song, like that starts, he's putting on a clinic. I forgot about Valkyrie. She's a badass. She has a sweet looking outfit and sword. And then you have Hulk fighting Fenrir, which he got bit and bled, and I thought that was cool because they've never showed him bleeding.
I like seeing it.
I was like, oh, his skin is just it's impermeable to anything. But then when you have an ancient Nordic super wolf, probably some things work differently. That was cool that they showed him getting bit like that. And then you have, they have Surtur basically kill Hela, which I thought was a necessary sacrifice. I know they don't, you don't want Asgard to be destroyed, but, as they said, it's a people, not a place.
Yeah, absolutely. One scene in this I want to talk about that it just didn't get enough attention, but it's so great. Out of all the humor in this movie, my absolute favorite of this entire film is when Thor comes back to Asgard and sees the play going on with Loki's demise. I don't think a lot of people know every actor that was in that. So, for instance, everybody knows Matt Damon played that Loki character.
Yeah, and it was kind of hard for me to spot at first, but then I was like, that's Matt Damon. Like, what is he doing in this movie?
You have him playing as actor Loki. What was also great is that Luke Hemsworth, kind of the rejected Hemsworth brother, was the Thor actor.
Oh, I didn't even realize. I didn't realize it was a third Hemsworth. For being honest,
it was a third Hemsworth.
Oh
and
man,
then Odin was played by Sam Neill from Jurassic Park, and it's.
Oh really? Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. I knew Matt Damon. I didn't recognize any of the other ones though.
Yeah, when you go back through it, you'll see Sam Neill, and you're like, "What the hell? He's Odin." And you got Luke Hemsworth plays the Thor actor. You're like, oh my god, it's so great.
When he comes back to that play, and then you have Anthony Hopkins like sipping his wine. He's like, shit, because he didn't expect him to be back. I like how they showed kind of more development between Thor and Loki. They don't hate each other. They're at odds. Because their motivations are different. Loki's really more motivated by keeping himself alive. If keeping Thor alive helps him stay alive, then he's going to do that. And Jeff Goldblum is so good in this.
Yeah.
It's just Jeff Goldblum in space is all it is. So that whole scene, whenever they first meet him, that Willy Wonka sequence that they do where he's in the chair, where, you know, because like the Willy Wonka, they go through that tunnel and they play all that weird imagery on the walls and stuff, and it's very psychologically, like, it freaks you out.
Yeah.
And then he just screams and he's just not moving anymore, and like that was one of the funniest scenes to me. But then you have him telling, like, hey, if you can defeat, you know, our champion, then, you know, you might win your freedom or whatever. That's where he meets Korg, and then he goes out there and realizes that it's Hulk who's the champion, which you kind of get a little nod to the Planet Hulk storyline, but not, like, full-on Planet Hulk, which is nice, because that story gets pretty dark from what I remember. Thor, as soon as he sees Hulk, he's, like, happy about it. He's like, he's a friend from work. I love that line because it was improvised. There was a Make-A-Wish kid on set who said, hey, you should say that to him, and they just loved it so much. I don't know how old the kid was, but like that's an amazing joke just to think of off the top of your head. The fact that they kept it in means that they weren't going to use any joke like that to begin with, which kind of means like he's thinking of stuff that adults didn't think of, and I appreciate that. Sometimes you just need that almost childlike sense of humor. So I love that scene. That was great. And then, you know, you have them playing Get Help. They're doing Get Help to, like, escape or whatever. Like, we're not doing Get Help. That's and he's like, help! Get help! My brother, he's been wounded. And then he just throws him. That's so good. So, yeah. There's so many good parts. I realize that sometimes the humor can be a little too much, but I think it works with how they were presenting the movie anyway. I feel like the super serious parts were kept super serious for the most part.
Every once in a while, then those serious moments, it would just pull you out. Cause it's like, no, I don't want you to feel serious. I want you to laugh. I'm like, yeah, but in this moment, let me feel serious.
Alright guys, that was part 1 of our Marvel Phase 3 tier list and discussion. Join us next time. We're going to finish out the rest of Phase 3, and we'll finish out the series as a whole, actually. You guys know the drill by now. Subscribe, like, comment. Alright guys, see you next time. We're out of here. That's a wrap.